with spring split plus this, we haven't casted since like the open qualifiers. I think when we saw
Yes.
Dorado, when we followed that gravity run way back when, it has been forever, Leo.
Yeah,
It's
it
awesome to be
has.
back together. Honestly, it's
It, it,
amazing.
it is very fun. I'm very glad that we're back here. Quacks, here's the problem. We may have ourselves a pretty lopsided series here as we step into that final
Possibly.
GSL stage when it comes down to where these teams were seated. We will be taking a look at Deathmark Napoleon taking on the Whole Milk Esports edition here. So these rosters, Quacks, definitely one-sided, but hey, you know, anything can happen now that we start moving into this draft in this series.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like this, while you said it best, where, Milk Esports, Whole Milk are definitely the favored bunch here in this series, Slayer, I feel like Deathmark Napoleon have definitely managed to pull out a decent amount of stops in their own series. I think they're definitely the antithesis of what Whole Milk have been playing throughout this GSL, throughout this ACL, where Whole Milk have been, I think, very, very comfortable, very, very sturdy on their champion pools, playing what they like, playing what they know, and really not deviating from their course and draft. Whereas Deathmark Napoleon have been pulling out all the stops, particularly Verdict has been playing things like the Zed, things like the Mundo, things like the Shyvana have even met this guy's self, his being in game. So Deathmark Napoleon certainly no strangers to being able to throw some curveballs at Whole Milk. So I'm wondering to see how Whole Milk might actually respond to some of those curveballs coming out as we are getting into the draft of game number 1. Already Cho'Gath and Udyr taken off. Lucian going to be the ban by Deathmark Napoleon, really just trying to limit what Levitate is capable of playing in this series.
Without a doubt. And, you know, one thing that's the most fun about the ACL in particular is I think it is a place that really broods that awesome creativity when it comes to identity approaches to drafts.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm glad that you're talking about how Verdict has been playing like all these fun jungle champions. Like, I hate when these teams that are, you know, outclassed, again, I want to put it in quotation marks, anything can happen today, but outclassed on like the resumes of their team, and then they just try and play like super standard drafts that like all 5 of these players from Milk Esports Whole Milk have seen over and over again. Try and catch them off guard. Play what you crafted this team to play around, and maybe we'll see Verdict pick a carry champion out of the jungle. Certainly isn't gonna have to deal with any real bans here, as Cho'Gath and Aurora are the last 2 bans to come across for Whole Milk. Jace and Zaya round things out. So my LPL brain is still stuck in LPL form from last night, and I see a lot of very valuable LPL champions, but this is a whole different landscape, Quack.
I don't know if that's a good thing from last night's series, Slayer. That IGBLG series, we won't mention it too much on the broadcast, but gotta say, I'm so sorry for you, bro. As, yeah, Whole Milk, they are on the blue side, do have a ton of interesting champions that they could go for as a B1, but they're going to go stock standard, throw that Azir down instantly, pairs well with a lot of junglers, and particularly, I think Drexer is definitely the person on this Whole Milk squad that sticks out like a sore thumb. A lot of people have been talking about his ability to keep up with his teammates, kind of play around these star-studded laners, and I think if you can give him something that bounces off, pairs well, with a lot of these champions, then he should be in a good spot. And I certainly think Azir is evergreen when it comes to what you can pair with him as a mid-jungle duo.
Without a doubt. A usual trade-off you see here when Azir comes through, a lot of people like to go for the Taliyah handshake. Azir Taliyah is a very common handshake. Good to see that Deathmark Napoleon are going to capitalize on the fact that Varus makes it through a ban phase here. Just the most stock standard, most valuable champion to pick in the AD carry is the Ziggs comes out. We were talking about the LPL. That's very funny timing, because one thing we learned, if you're a Billy Gaming fan, besides last night, is that Knight started piloting this Ziggs counter pick. This is a massive counter pick into the Azir already coming through for Deathmark Napoleon.
It's really good. I mean, it's kind of like a ping gap, potentially, as we all know that the people in LPL have like 6 ping North America. We're not so fortunate, but if you can time it right, that satchel charge can be a massive hurdle, a massive thorn in the side of the bird that'll clip his wings and prevent him from getting away from some of these ganks. Now, I think to kind of finish it off, though, to make that, disruption that Zings brings to the table in this matchup. You need someone that can capitalize off of it into the jungle. And now, speaking of jungle, Whole Milk have revealed their junglers. It is the nerfed Trundle here, Slayer, who has, while he's still seen some play, is significantly less threatening on the new patch and does definitely do a little bit worse into some of those matchups that already were tough for him. I'm thinking things like the Jarvan might be a good answer from Deathmark Napoléon to potentially bring out here if you want to get that combination of the mid jungle here for red side, and also just take away, I think, a decent amount of proactivity from Esports Whole Milk, or at least have them match the Jarvan's tempo.
One benefit that you do get with the Trundle as well here is that you can now be the team that picks the tank top, right? You're daring Deathmark Napoléon to give a subjugate target over towards Draxer. So yeah, let's get Manui on the Scion. Very beefy, a front line being supplied, and that's what's going to be needed for Milk Esports to try and beat what is already very clearly going to be a poke-centric sort of style coming out here from Deathmark Napoléon. I very much so expect this Varus to be lethality Varus. And now they have their tank buster in the Gwen coming across. For all the jokes I made about how I come onto these ACL drafts and have to get out of the LPL state of mind, these are all champions that you are currently seeing dominate Tier 1 play.
Absolutely, and I think Gwen is a really good answer into the Scion. You probably sacrifice a little bit of that mid-jungle synergy that we were talking about, as I would imagine Whole Milk are going to ban away some of those proactive junglers, things that come to mind. Obviously, you've got things like the Xin Zhao, like the Wukong, those might be taken off the table, or maybe even some engage supports, as I do think Deathmark Napoléon lack a little bit of that snap go engage for their team. They don't really have that go button beyond the chains of corruption by the Varus. They definitely need more of that. So they are going to, for the time being, like you said, get their tank killer. They have a lot of magic damage, though, Slayer. They have the Ziggs, they have the Gwen, double AP solo laners, and Varus is not strictly put into that AD category. He does mixed damage. So there is a decent amount of, I think, reason for things like the Scion, even the Trundle, to just rush that MR, right? Say, screw the rest of the threats that Deathmark Napoléon might draft in the second half of this phase. We are going for things like the Unending Despair. We're going for things like the Spirit Visage. We're going for things like the Force of Nature to just make sure that these magic damage threats cannot stat check us in the skirmishes. And I think those skirmishes are really important when you have champions like Trundle who operate on a timer in that early game.
Without a doubt, Quacks, as we do move through the second ban phase and see that Levitate earns and draws himself a 4 marksman ban with the Tristan and Israel. As you called out, though, the J4 does come across. Valuable to, I think, in this game, hold the Trundle in place, but kind of shows why the bans were the way they are. I like this from Deathmark Napoléon. They're like, all right, let's get rid of some champions with reliable dashes on the AD carry, and we're going to force Levitate to likely pick a more immobile marksman, and Cataclysm is the worst thing to deal with. Like, this Jhin, it's good, right? You are outranging a lot of what Deathmark Napoléon want to put together. But if that Cataclysm comes through, there's an Inferno Bomb coming right after it. There's a Piercing Arrow coming after that, and Levitate is dead unless he has Flash.
They could throw down like a Rakan as well to maybe try and give some of that peel over to the Jhin. Just get some of those threats that are constantly diving onto your backline some room to breathe, some room to move. They are going to do that, but I think a little bit more committal with the Rel. I kind of am not a huge fan of this Rel, as I do think that Rakan would have been a decent answer, as it gives you that option to engage, but it also gives you the option to disengage. I feel like going for that all-for-nothing playstyle on the Rel, where it's just engage, constantly going, constantly fight, it's going to be really dangerous when you're staring down a Gwen with 3 items, a Ziggs with 3 items. So this is definitely a comp that I think Whole Milk are going to need to punish earlier in the game, as the Rakan is actually going to be on the other side for Deathmark Napoléon. Really good counter to the Rel right there. Honestly, Slayer, I really like Deathmark Napoléon's draft here for game number 1. Like, you mentioned the poke, you mentioned the engage, you mentioned the punish of how immobile some of these carries on Esports Whole Milk are. And I feel like all of these things should come together if they manage to actually group on up. But that has been the biggest conceit of Deathmark Napoléon all throughout this ACL. They really have struggled, I think, to make use of that synergy. The fact that this top side has been together since that open qualifier where we saw Citadel and Dorado promote. They really have been, a team for a decent amount of time, but they just haven't managed to stick the landing in a lot of these matches. They haven't been able to really make use of that synergy in the late game because they fall apart more often than not in the early game.
Yeah, and that's going to be a very fun thing to track here in the early game, because that is where a team with the pedigree Milk Esports Whole Milk bring should definitely be able to dominate and carry through. Let's get into that early game by getting ourselves over on to Summoner's Rift. Game 1 of match week 4 in the Aegis Champions League, as we start to dwindle down the amount of teams still remaining in the league. We've said sayonara to squads like Travelers. And these two squads are not far away from an elimination match of their own. And if you're Milk Esports Whole Milk, you want to stay as far away as you can from that, knowing what this roster potentially, and for some people, Wax, should be capable of come playoffs.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that, you know, for lack of a better term, and, you know, pun not intended, the whole is less than the sum of its parts in case of Esports Whole Milk. I feel like this is a squad where you look at the individual pieces, you expect them to come together, but they have, you know, not necessarily managed to come together to the degree that a lot of people expected. A lot of people had high hopes for this Whole Milk squad, and they haven't really been able to match those hopes, as now they're going up against a team that, you know, a lot of people were low on in Deathmark Napoléon. So this is definitely just, I think, a road to redemption kind of story coming out here for Whole Milk, showing that those 2 losses to Gravity were just 2 losses. They are still a team to be feared, and, you know, qualification here, or a win here, would qualify them and would certainly put them on the lower end of rankings for that, you know, playoffs bracket, but would certainly be a dangerous team to meet as one of those favored teams. Definitely feel like there are teams you want to meet in that first round more than Whole Milk when you look across and see these players.
Looking across the rift, though, here, as we get minions crashing in against each other per usual, I want to revisit this Varus from Pew Pew, because I'm at a crossroads, Quacks, that you must guide me through. We talked about the fact that you have a Ziggs, and you kind of want to lean into your range of the poke here. But Pew Pew has got the lethal tempo, which is going to signal the on-hit Varus. However, I do see some value in that route, knowing especially the top jungle that Esports Whole Milk Esports are bringing to this game. So I'm curious how you feel about which Varus you wanted to see more.
I kind of feel like lethality has a little bit more value, but I will say on hit, I mean, the biggest conceit of on hit Varus, right, at all times is just being able to position, right? You have shorter range than I think a lot of people assume with Varus, and you're not mobile. So if you're caught out of position, you are just, you know, finding yourself on a gray screen permanently. And more often than not, that is probably the situation we see for a lot of these on-hit Varuses. I feel like lethality has a way better track record than on-hit for that reason, because you are able to stay back and be a little bit more safe. In a match like this, where you have a lot of peel on things like the Rakan, things like the Jarvan, even things like the Ziggs with that satchel charge, it's going to be up to him to just, oh, hang on.
Hello, just out of nowhere, Zephyros has 3 people in his lane and has to immediately expend that flash. So Whole Milk making a point. They are going to make Zephyrod's life living hell, and expect to see that flash cooldown be revisited later. Right now, here's the response from Deathmark and Napoléon. They're going to force the flash, medium flash followed by Verdict to get the knockup. Good use on the Jarvan kit to get that first blood over, but a pillar from Draxler is going to make sure Manui gets his revenge in zombified form.
Yeah, so it is going to be a 1-for-1 on top side, as we got more action on the bot lane. Pew Pew.
Ghost Pop. He's going to get the crit shot with the Q forward. Pew Pew's going to have to flash and get the heal over from Admiral Potato. And it's just a ton of summoners being used on that bot side. But again, going forward for Whole Milk, mid lane and AD carry without flash going forward.
This is like a green go button. All of the signs are flipping up for Drexer here on this Trundle. You've got flash burned from 3 different members on Deathmark Napoléon at 4 minutes. You as Trundle have flash, have the ability to be proactive. So you have to be rushing to these lanes, trying your best to make use of that immobility, of those flashes being down for a lot of these DMK members. But he actually is going to get a later reset. He's now getting onto the map 4.5 minutes in. So might have a little bit of ground to cover as this Trundle. We'll see if he can actually make something happen on the map, as he's on bot side, and you can see, Cryogen and Levitate are posturing for a potential fight, Slayer.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know why Vertix hanging out so long, but they do get Cryogen caught a bit early.
That's flag and drag.
For the stun. Remember, there are no summoners on Pew Pew. He gets a ton of damage back out. Draxer coming around for the gank, but it looks like Levitate and Cryogen took too much harass a bit early. And that sprint towards the bot side is going to have a slow walk back towards the Krugs as Manui's starting to get a little too tanky for good old-fashioned Tommy to handle already.
Yeah. And, you know, kind of going back to some history a little bit is, nope, hang on, we don't have time for that. Manui.
He's got flash.
Ooh.
Tommy, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
But this
okay,
wave
he'll be
state
fine.
is terrible.
It is absolutely horrendous. As Tommy, not only is he being bullied out, but he also doesn't have TP, right? So he is going to be having to deal with losing a decent amount of resources as Gwen at a point in time when you don't want to be losing those resources. You want to be scaling up as safe as possible in the laning phase, especially with Flash, you know, having that extra defense. This is not a situation you want to find yourself in as the top laner for DMK, as Cryogen Hex slashes over the wall.
Again, this two-man brigade, Cryogen.
Oh, wait, he used the...
Make it difficult.
Yep.
He'll slip out.
Should be able to slip out. Yep. But, you know, kind of going back to that, Manui really dominating the top lane here. Over 10 CS lead here for the Scion. Going back to the
inventory, by the way, for the Scion. Are we cooking with this Scion?
Are we cooking?
Or am I out on tank build paths? I'm pretty sure Tunneler is not something I see Scions normally building.
Ooh.
Sephiroth?
Yeah.
Oh, he's holding on to that ultimate. 5 does have flash. A dragon start's also happening from Draxer, and you get to watch Cryogen play bodyguard into Potato. Verdict is on the other side of the map, but I do like this from him. He's going to recognize, hey, I can't get down there, so I'm just going to steal some camps away for that first dragon whole milk pickup.
Yeah, I mean, Verdict, on top of that, you know, first kill that he got on the top side, that first blood, he is also a really significant amount of CS over Drexer. I think Drexer has been kind of been diminutively forsaking his camps, hasn't really been farming, has really just been posturing, looking to be proactive, you know, abuse those slashless targets that we talked about from earlier, Slayer, but it has not really been paying dividends. He's kind of just been walking around, making sure that no aggression comes from DMK. We'll have to see if that allows maybe some of these lanes to get an advantage, a granular one that compounds and builds into something significant as the game goes on, potentially like this.
Another crash down here.
Or not.
Cryogen, but Pew Pew's going to make him think twice about it. The heal comes out. A couple more autos. The
level up.
Pew Pew should have this kill. Good flash from Cryogen, though. Looks to try and land the stun. Is Levitate now taking a good amount of harass. Good flash out of the grand entrance, though. Gets him out, but this Deathmark Napoléon bottom lane standing back up tall after the early woes.
And that is a bit of a lucky level up there from the support of Whole Milk. Hits level 5 in the nick of time. Prevents Pew Pew from getting his first of the game, but it's also flash burned from Levitate. So Verdict now, who just unlocked the Cataclysm for that Jarvan, should definitely be looking toward that bot side from here on out, but might have to take a bit of a detour as those grubs up in less than 10 seconds, definitely calling the names of both teams, as now we've got resets on resets and everybody is just gravitating toward that top side, Slayer.
I'm glad you pointed out the grubs there, Quacks, because woo-wee. If we're Deathmark Napoléon, I don't know why we're not sprinting 5 members. I know
both
of
these teams want grubs.
Yeah,
I mean,
a Gwen Ziggs comp? Oh my lord, if that could get 3 grubs. You're making a good point, though, with Zir as well. A Trundle, yeah.
Trundle, Scion.
Yeah, these grubs are the most valuable thing that we might see in the entire game. You can see why everyone's just rushing over. 5 though, is going to be cut off here. Goes for the Emperor's Divide, only going to throw Potato away, and he gets dunked down by the Cataclysm. Verdict picks up that kill, and all of a sudden, the grub take for Whole Milk comes to a grinding halt.
Yep, and you could see Fi down for another few seconds. Is going to have that teleport quickly coming off of cooldown, so should be able to re-enter the fight, but will be doing it without an Emperor's Divide, so that big ultimate not going to be available for Whole Milk. And it looks like DMK beating them to the punch should have these grubs on lock.
There's 2 already taken down. Pew Pew going to swing over. Yeah, so they're pushing Cryogen and Levitate off, and that should secure all 3 of these grubs. Yep, Verdict's going to get it. And all of a sudden, what a spot Deathmark Napoléon are in. If you ask for, what they wanted to do through the first 10 minutes, it's hard to think of a better state than this one outside of the obvious, we pentakilled them on level 1 Clown Fiesta. Oh, okay, hold on. Draxer is invading for more of these camps back onto Verdict, who does not have his flag and drag to lean into. He does have the flash. He's getting stunned up, though. Good root, but the flag and drag is going to cancel the deadly flourish, so he gets back out, and now the wrap is on. Cryogen and Draxer went far too forward. Levitate going to hit a crit shot, though, as Draxer does pop the subjugate. Good damage onto Levitate, as Potato will drop to Draxer. Curtain Call coming out here. Will it find any hits? Not on any of these carries, as Sephiroth Zephyros has used the Blast Cone and Satchel Charge to get himself back out. We go towards the bot side where top laners are brawling as well. Manui adds to the flash counter down here. And somehow the only one to drop through all of that is Potato.
It's a decent counterpunch there by Deathmark Napoléon, looking to abuse Drexer and Krausen, who were isolated for the time being, but then the rest of Whole Milk managed to rally behind those members, cover them, and at least save them from a grim fate. It's a 1-0 in favor of Whole Milk, and I'm also as surprised as you are, Slayer, that didn't lead to more bloodshed. But I feel like still, you look at this bot side, Tommy is still just withering away this Scion, constantly putting the pressure onto Manui. And Manui as a player, I think a lot of people were really interested to see how this swap would go. Obviously, an AD carry player that went to support on conviction in the NACL, did really well in that role, and then swaps over to top lane, and now he's looking to just throw down with Pew Pew.
This is a damaged Scion, everybody. He's got some long swords and a tunneler. And he's making sure that Pew Pew knows that this is not a tanky Scion. This is running him down. I think TP's and ults on his face. And the swing Tommy over to match it, but Manui is definitely having some fun with his own Scion, and gotta respect it.
I feel like that might have been a bit of an oopsie from Manui, as now Dragon's going to be up in about 10 seconds. You won't have access to that unstoppable onslaught. You're basically locked in to covering this Gwen, and you really want that tanky frontliner if you're Esports Whole Milk and you're wanting to contest this Dragon. So it feels like that just became a whole lot harder. We're seeing TP come out from Mini. The Dragon is the target.
No flash, no satchel charge, and a punch his shoulders. Okay, guys, come on.
No,
Zephyros. All right,
okay,
up for Crygen, but it wasn't as clean as if you want it to be. If you're Whole Milk, still, they do drop the 6 with that Dragon coming up here. Tommy is going to try and push down to grab some more of these plates. I'm seeing a whole lot of pings towards this bot side. Yep, Whole Milk are trying to push the tempo. No Ziggs to deal with, and they're going to chase out all of DMK and make sure that they can set up this big Dragon stacking win con.
You can see DMK are not backing down. Yeah, I mean, Zephyros going to be up in just a couple of seconds. I think Whole Milk might have missed their window to start up this Dragon. Ziggs is back onto the map, and all of the Whole Milk members are resetting, so they are going to be conceding a lot of space. Verdict is going to be starting it, but I feel like he might have been doing it too early. The timing is not really the best from either of these squads.
Oh, Crygen gets interrupted mid-crash down, but he still drops the Magnet Storm. Levitates, firing out the Curtain Call. Can it find any of these low health bars? No, the fourth crit shot. As Drexer gets picked off by a nice piercing arrow from Pew Pew, and now, all of a sudden, can't take that Dragon without a jungler. Another spot where DMK refused to be pushed around by the Whole Milk squad.
Really, really good positioning from the DMK members, in particular Pew Pew, sitting in that tri-bush, making it difficult for Whole Milk to fully aggress onto the Varus. This is the power of having a poke comp. If you are well positioned, you're able to lay down that damage without the threats being able to reach you. And that Varus certainly felt untouchable. The result is a kill, a Dragon. And DMK looking really impressive in this early game. They have overcome the biggest hurdle we said they had in the draft, Slayer.
Big hurdle indeed to clear. We can now focus in on some of these, builds starting to come across for some of these members. And mainly I want to talk about the first items and where we really feel the power spikes are coming across here. Riftmaker done for Tommy. Sundered Sky, that's pretty standard. Got to buy some time for Zephyros with that Seraphs that's going to try and come through the Archangel. Archangel's already just completed by this point. Skirmishes already been pretty close, Quacks. Where in the items do you think either one of these teams could find an edge?
I feel like it's just DMK having to fight with their top side, as now Admiral Potato, their bot side, is in trouble.
Oh, Pew Pew! Yep, he doesn't have ult up, doesn't have flash or ghost. And Drexer can't knock him down. What a clutch heal coming across for Potato. And Crygen doesn't have enough damage to clean it up. 3-0 for Pew Pew out the gate on the on-hit Varus.
And the Deadly Flourish just narrowly missing Pew Pew to end it all off. Call an ambulance, but not for me moment here in the ACL. That's got to be real unfortunate for Whole Milk. They are not too happy about that, as not only do they lose 2 members, but they're going to concede this bot lane turret. They're going to give so much gold over to this Gwen because they wanted to overload the top side. They are sacrificing so much space and getting none in return, Slayer.
Now with that first brick, they're also aptly positioned to go after the feats of strength by this point. It's going to be the feats of monster slaying that's really going to decide that one, as each team is split a Dragon and the Grub's Edge going over towards DMK. We're now just in such a pristine spot. They've got sort of that bridge champion lead coming across here for Verdict. They've got themselves a Gwen that's been relatively undisturbed so far through the scaling, and this Varus already has the Blade of the Ruin King, as you can now see where a lot of this 2K gold lead is allocated in, and a huge chunk of it coming in that jungle matchup. Nearly 1,000 lead here for Verdict over Draxer.
Yeah, absolutely. Verdict has just been silently farming away, and Draxer just trying to cover his lanes in the early game. It's coming back to bite him a little bit as he's found himself to be quite irrelevant on this Trundle, but still has the power to, click R, like a lot of the meta junglers do nowadays, Slayer. Even if they're low econ, they've got that button. It is Admiral Potato.
Oh, this is a tough spot to be in, but hey, flash and dash back towards your teammate will
there you go.
Get you out. But that's the flash engage tool off Potato, as Manui's chasing down Tommy without ultimate. That's to dash himself back over the wall, trying to show why the Titanic Hydra Scion is going to be a big threat. But hey, look what's up. Rift Herald here, and Draxer knows that Whole Milk need to take this if they want to stay alive in those feats of strength conversations.
I feel like DMK should not be letting this happen. I mean, you have Tommy with teleport, you have Tommy with flash. This Gwen is in such a good position to fight, but they just don't have any eyes on this Trundle. Add to that Manui can't really cross the map. He's going to have to teleport. He doesn't have that unstoppable onslaught. There's resource advantage here for DMK. They've got to go in. Yeah.
Draxer went 1v1 with the Herald. Now he's having to subjugate flash out of a Cataclysm. Potato goes after him, can't find him. Sephiroth, though, getting soloed out by 5 Mini. Finds that solo kill to maybe give edge towards Whole Milk as Manui TP's in. Deadly Flourish going to land on a Potato who will have to sacrifice himself. 5 Mini has come to play now with a double kill picked up. Pew Pew trying to run down Manui, who's still just enough tanky, and Levitate's going to drop the Curtain Call, not just for the damage here, but more so for the slows to try and get Manui and Crygen close enough. Crygen crashing get back out. Here's Verdict comes in, jumps on top of Levitate. Tommy on the front line, still trying to hold on to that pass. He pops the needlework and helps Pew Pew go on a rampage. Manui is down, and now he's going to try to use the zombified form to set up these deadly flourishes. They do find the catch on to Tommy, but he flashes out as Pew Pew executes Crygen. It has to be 5 Mini, but even he can't stand up to the might of this Varus. They go 1 for 1, 3 more kills to Pew Pew's Varus.
And DMK, they're living up to the Napoleon part of their name, Slayer, the tactical advantage, looking 10 steps ahead in the team fight. They lose 2, but they space perfectly with the remaining 3 members. And Esports Whole Milk, they're like, who's going in? What do we do? We're all low. We can't keep fighting. We can't go on the Herald. It's reset. They had no options. And at the end of the day, they come out empty-handed. They get the kills, but they miss out on the Herald. And that Herald is going to be a beautiful bridge for Deathmark Napoléon to use now that this dragon has spawned.
And there's feats of strength guaranteed as well. Get the boot upgrades. You called out the Herald. They've been way on top of these turrets as well. You can see Tommy.
They're conceding.
He's going to knock down this tier 1, but they can get a lot more off of this. I wonder about this Rift Herald placement. I guess it gets a crash into the tier 2 turret. Not the best use of it, I would say, but I still like the fact that DMK are trying to lean into the fact that they're going to have so much more map control now just because of the turret count alone.
And you can see, I mean, Drexer's on the top side here to cover a potential push from DMK. He's actually not cross-mapping, not utilizing Manui. Yeah, not utilizing the fact that Manui is also doing the same on bot side. Oh my god, Drexer, no fight!
He walked up and smited the wolf because he wanted the level up, but he's going to die for it. He's going to get caught in the Cataclysm. And the satchel charge from Sephiroth gets the top lane tier 2 turret as well. Another win for Deathmark Napoléon.
And I mean, you have the Hex Gate, so you don't lose like any tempo whatsoever as Sephiroth. Uh-oh.
The satchel charge and the Emperor's Divide at the same time throw both people skyward. Flash forward as a good catch comes across from onto Cryogen, but 5 Mini does execute Sephiroth. This game is getting scrappier and scrappier by the minute, Quacks.
It absolutely is, but I mean, the big prevailing victor for Esports Whole Milk definitely is 5 Mini. 5-2 on this year, closing in on 2 items, should be able to reset and then get that second item after securing this tower, but I mean, that's just kind of borrowed time at this point. Deathmark Napoléon, they've reset. They're using the Hex Gate to get onto that bot side. Dragon really isn't in control of Whole Milk. They don't have a ton of territory in that river, that at least you know, territory and vision that can't be reclaimed by DMK. in the meantime. And so I like what Whole Milk are doing here. They're just over-indexing on the top side, saying, let's play for our Azir. Let's play for the side where we actually have vision, where we actually have some say in what happens. And that, I feel, is probably the only thing they can do realistically, Slayer, but it is something that comes with a cost. You give up that dragon, you give up that scaling edge, and that's something you need to make sure this Azir can be as strong as possible.
I think Whole Milk are doing a good job using their, what I, again, would consider more superior macro approach in this matchup to at least find these little ounces of gold back, right? Even though you give that dragon, right, I still think it's way more valuable to get a tier 2 turret off the board for a third Drake when you split 1-1 on the first two. So it's still those things that Deathmark and Napoléon, you talked about it, you know, as a team, especially this top side, they played a lot of games together. There is still room for them to grow in that sort of decision-making department, especially when they're sitting on a lead like this. And there's still more than enough time to show that they can close out this game, but they have been in control virtually this entire time. It's about not letting a veteran team whittle their way back in, because we've seen that way too many times in the ACL already, Quacks.
Yeah, we absolutely have. And I feel like Esports Whole Milk, like you said, the pedigree of these players is very high, but realistically, I mean, still doesn't mean they can get these free wins. They've got the macro, but it seems like Napoléon are just better at fighting at the current moment. Like we said, this team has been together for a long time. Their team fighting is pristine.
Charm. Potato catches the charm mid-Emperor's Divide, so it gets Tommy through, and they pick off that big bad Azir you were hyping up just a minute ago.
Yeah, that's a massive shutdown over to DMK. And I mean, look at where Drexler is. He's on the bot side. He was there to try and cover his mid laner. That Otacon that could be under threat right now because Deathmark Napoléon, you know, overloaded the bot side, is not, in fact, under threat. Now Drexler might be dead.
Yeah, he pops as the subjugate, so he gets enough healing here, but he's going to have to flash away from Tommy. What a gap that's been forming here in this jungle department. But you talked about it, right? Drax are not being in the right spots to try and answer these cross maps.
Oh, boy.
Here comes Matui. Here comes Matui with his Titanic Hydra looking to slap down some extra autos as a Cataclysm. Looks like it went down onto Cryogen. He's able to get out of it. Decimating Smash not going to knock up Tommy, and now Deathmark Napoléon, no reason to overstay here. They're also going to get the TP out of 5 mini. Cryogen wants to fight, feels the Whole Milk have the advantage, and he locks down Verdict he can. Chains the Corruption going to Lando, back onto a non-subjugate, holding Draxler. He once again drops to start the fight. Redemption's going to cancel out the curtain call value as Cryogen takes a huge lick from Pew Pew once more. And just like that, DMK turn on their heels to find the 1 kill in this bottom side jungle.
And it's so unfortunate for Mini. He wasn't able to find a counterpunch on that Azir. You could see him over the wall on that red buff. He was saying, okay, I can go for some type of a play. I can go for some type of an engage. But he didn't have Emperor's Divide Slayer. He didn't have the opportunity to make the play. It was a beautiful angle for the mid laner of Whole Milk, but he didn't have the resources to do anything as Cryogen. Where are you going, my friend?
He was going for the flank of Dreams, and all he's going to find is the gray screen of Nightmares, thanks to Tommy. Is going to pick up Verdict on the backside of the pit here, so they don't have a jungler, but Manui's going to drop next. Good stream and shuffle does come out from 5 mini, and look at all the space it creates. Gets the giant Gwen off the back of the 2 carries, and he has to burn his flash just to get back towards his team, but the Hex Gates are going to bring in Draxler once more. But he shouldn't chase into Fog here. With the jungler up, though, maybe that Otacon you were talking about will finally be Whole Milk's.
Tommy has teleport. He has the ability to get right back into the middle of the action. Zephyrod is in a position, I think, resource-wise, where he can still remain on the map. So you've got the solo laners of DMK still in a healthy position, but that Otacon is being burned away as 5 mini is dealing so much damage as this Azir. So Otacon actually will go over to Whole Milk in a sea of defeats. They find their victory on the top side. They find the kill onto Verdict, and Mini yet again manages to lay down the damage that we were hyping up on this Azir.
Player that was so impressive and, you know, touted by a lot as one of those future mid lane prospects to look out for when it comes to North American developmental conversations. You know, just had... I think he had a very big bright spot for that AMI team, was a huge part of why they were able to get up to the NACL. And it's for his ability to kind of warp games just like this. For all we talked about DMK, he's been able to stabilize Whole Milk, put them in a position to, well, go for plays like this. On to Tommy, who's just a bit too far up on that side lane. Needlework can be popped. Doesn't have flash, though, and
God, they're all chasing
snares
him.
Aren't landing. I really would think that Tommy should be as good as dead, but he's making them work for it. Finally, they're able to lock down the Gwen. give that shutdown the first kill of the game, funnily enough, over to Levitate.
It kind of feels like that, yeah, it's the first death over to Tommy. And it's going to be a pretty costly one on the side of DMK. You can see they're really trying to seize this bottom side, you know, establish vision, really make sure that if Whole Milk face check, they should be punished ahead of this dragon. But they have their eyes set a little bit higher on the totem pole. Dragons be damned. They're going just straight for the Baron. And honestly, you have so much control over this part of the map. I feel like this is that beautiful macro, Slayer. This is what we were talking about.
You know, for all that Draxler is, you know, made some mistakes in this game and is, you know, if we pull up the gold, I'm sure he's still the main reason why this is such a, I mean, he's down 13K. So that's why DMK, or 1.3K, sorry, not 13K, it's egregious. This is why DMK are in the lead in gold, right? But I want to give Draxler his flowers because as that coach mind, as that leader, his decision-making is still so much more on point. And now, like you called out, with that macro, has Whole Milk in a prime position to at least kind of slow down this side lane onslaught we've seen come down from Tommy and Zephyrod in the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, there's still a tier 1 remaining on the side of Esports Whole Milk, and they really want to knock that one down. So they're just all going to group around this mid lane. They're not necessarily going to show. They're going to say that the threat of an attack is maybe sometimes, you know, as dangerous as the attack itself. They're just splitting up, making sure that they corral Deathmark Napoleon around the map, force them to respond and play reactively. You know, contrary to the rest of the game, where I feel like DMK have been the more proactive team of the two. And now they're kind of having to switch gears here and really play defensively. It's Whole Milk's time to really accelerate that gold lead and take some of these turrets, and they are doing just that. Not only that, they're preventing a lot of this sieging power, this side laning power that Tommy has been, you know, really been a thorn in the side of Whole Milk this entire game.
I really like that decision from Deathmark Napoleon, right? You can kind of see it from Tommy. He wanted to back when he saw the siege coming for that bot lane tier 2 turret, but he cancels it. They have Pew Pew set up in the mid lane to push a mid wave out so they don't lose the mid tier 1 turret just yet. And like you called out, so smart to stall out this Baron that is on a timer. So yeah, sure, you're going to give away a tier 2 turret, you're going to give away the mid tier 1, but if that's all that Whole Milk can come away with on this Baron, and you're able to, you know, pick off Manui, who gets caught in a great cataclysm use from Verdict, cannot unstoppable onslaught his way to safety. Hold on, the Manui's surviving for a while there. It takes a lot of time he's get to pick up that kill, and now Draxler and 5 Mini are going to go back for the curtain call. Cryogen has popped up on the top side of this fight as well. Verdict with a good flash to get away from that stun, but a good collapse from Whole Milk, not going to let Manui get picked off for nothing.
I mean, it's a 1-for-1 at the end of the day, and you can see that Deathmark Napoleon are basically just causing Whole Milk to chase around. This, you know, is going to mean they have to drop that mid wave. Look at where Pew Pew is. He's on the mid lane. They finally have the opportunity to look for something. Even though Whole Milk have the Baron buff, they are still the ones that are forced to chase DMK around the map. And I especially think this is good because you have those Hex Gates. You have the ability to just walk away. And DMK are utilizing the map terrain to their advantage to just constantly have Whole Milk chase them around. It's an episode of Tom and Jerry, Slayer.
An old cat and mouse adage, but what a showing already from DMK. Like you mentioned earlier, Quacks, a team that, you know, we were somewhat familiar with from, you know, OQ showings, not much from there. A team that was put in a much lower pool than Whole Milk, mind you, when it came to the seeding committee. But take all that and put it in the back burner because this game, they have shown already that they are, one, able to go toe-to-toe with this Whole Milk squad. And what I think is more important, Quacks, not afraid of them in any aspect whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, this has been like a very common subject of debate, even in like tier 1 when we look at international competition, Slayer. Some teams just get cold feet. You see Faker on the other side of the map, FlyQuest or whoever are facing them are like, oh God, it's him, oh God, it's him. Even if they're not necessarily playing well, it's just the names have weight, the pedigree has implications, and a lot of teams do simply get scared because of those things. And I love that call from you, Slayer. DMK are not afraid of this team. They are playing with confidence. They are playing assured that they can win these fights. And I feel like they are just one fight away from being able to close out this game and take this fight to Esports Whole Milk. And it is going to be decided in about 50 seconds here. That Dragon potential soul for DMK on the line. If they can get this, they could look to be 1-0 up in this series.
What a spot that would be, knowing how close this series is to putting both of our teams on either playoff position or elimination island by this point, with how close the margins are this late into week 4 of the ACL. What to look forward to on the map here now is what's important. And you can see with Hexsoul as a threat here for Deathmark Napoléon, all these side lane conversations kind of go to the wayside, Quaxon. We fight over a Dragon.
Ooh,
Really
here
could decide
comes
this game as
Emerald.
they engage on the potato. Goes after 5 mini. The Cataclysm. Great Emperor's Divide, though. Flash out. Make sure that
they got him.
Zero's
They
not
got 5
trapped.
mini.
But Tommy gets onto 5 mini. And Pew Pew is able to free hit with this lethality. Varus coming through. Flashes galore go down. That will be Hextech Soul secured by DMK.
And it's Tommy relentless on the mid laner of Esports Whole Milk, not letting him go. This bird's wings have been clipped. They have been sliced off, and now it's the Hextech Soul acquired for DMK. They're not going to waste any time trying to utilize the pushing waves. They're going to break open the base of Whole Milk, Slayer.
Looking to take it all here. The inhibitor going to go down next. They're going to reposition themselves with a Baron spawning in about 10 seconds. It is looking dastardly here for Whole Milk to try and rescue this game 1. Their base is broken open. Hextech Soul is so valuable, and Baron might just seal their fate in our opening bout.
Yeah, it's rough here for the side of Whole Milk, as now, like you said, that Baron has spawned. Drexer as well just will be having flash up for this next fight, but this Trundle has so much weight now that the game is basically determined by who is getting these objectives and how efficiently they're able to get out with them. This Trundle being just that click R guy and being so susceptible to getting picked by DMK makes it difficult for them to actually have use of him in these fights. They've got to be careful about these 50-50s. They're starting up the Baron, but they're at a significant disadvantage as it's half HP.
Draxler is trying to dare the 50-50 swap from Verdict, try and test his smite power, but they get backed off the Baron.
Levitate is
Verdict
isolated.
is gonna go forward. Cryogen is not taking enough to survive this damage with Hextech Soul. Verdict able to get out as well, and Pew Pew just mows down onto 5 mini. The Varus again shining here for Deathmark Napoléon as they route around Draxler, pick him up another multi-kill, and they don't even need Baron to finish off this game. Deathmark Napoléon are gonna march through victoriously into the base of Whole Milk to set themselves up 1-0 up in our series.
I mean, who needs a Baron when you've got a Ziggs? The empowered super minions are coming through onto the base of Whole Milk. They've got 2 defending it, but it's not going to be enough, Slayer.
Dewey is not taking enough to hold this point. They are able to trade out 1 support pick, but it's just not enough. 1 turret left standing, and Pew Pew has his eyes set on the Nexus. Deathmark Napoléon have their eyes set on a playoff berth, and they're 1 game away from making it true.
DMK. The team, you know, the only team at this point that Whole Milk have lost to, Slayer, the one that I think has really put this squad on fraud watch for a lot of ACL enjoyers, has been Gravity. Every other team that Whole Milk have faced, they have come out the victors. They have come out victorious and looking very convincing, I will say, while doing it. Deathmark Napoléon being able to not only go and pick up a win here, but doing so in such a dominating fashion. I'm getting a little worried for Whole Milk, not just in the implications of being able to win this series, but being able to qualify in general, because I think the loser of this, yeah, I have it pulled up right here. The loser of this is going up against Galaxy Gaming. Yep. Slayer, that is not a team you want to be facing when your life is on the line. So it really adds that extra layer of not only do we really want to win, we also just really don't want to lose. It almost